I'm Abigail Mitchell, 34, and my family just banned me from our annual reunion. They claimed I bring down the mood with my ordinary life choices. Little did they know, the luxurious Nantucket beach house they chose for their gathering was actually mine. My beloved grandmother Martha secretly left it to me before she passed. While they thought they were excluding me from their perfect family portrait, they were actually walking straight into my property. I decided to let them settle in before making my entrance. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from? Hit like and subscribe to join me on this journey of sweet, unexpected justice. Growing up in the Mitchell family meant living under a microscope. Every achievement was measured, every flaw magnified. Our family photos might have looked perfect on the outside, coordinated outfits on pristine lawns, but behind those smiles was a ruthless hierarchy that placed me firmly at the bottom. My mother, Pamela, was the architect of our family's social image. A former beauty queen who married well, she dedicated her life to maintaining appearances. Her criticism came gift-wrapped in sweet tones. "Abigail, honey, have you considered highlights? They might distract from your fuller face." Or, "That bookstore job is so cute, but when are you going to find something with actual growth potential?" Nothing I did ever met her standards, especially when compared to my siblings. My father, Gregory, was physically present, but emotionally absent. A corporate attorney who measured life in billable hours and acquisitions, he saw family as another asset to manage. His rare moments of attention came when I brought home straight A's, which earned me a distracted good job without looking up from his phone. When I opened my bookstore instead of pursuing law like my brother, he stopped asking about my career entirely. Then there was Jason, my older brother by 3 years. The golden child. Harvard law graduate. Junior partner at a prestigious firm by 30. His wedding to Melissa, a dermatologist from a good family, my mother's highest praise, was featured in a regional magazine. Jason never missed an opportunity to remind me how simple it would be to get my life together if I just applied myself. My younger sister Tiffany completed our family portrait. 2 years my junior, she followed in our mother's beauty queen footsteps before building a social media empire based on fashion and authentic living. Ironic, considering nothing about her carefully filtered life was authentic. With her 1 million followers came sponsorships, a clothing line, and my parents' undivided approval. And then there was me, the middle child who loved books more than status, who opened a small independent bookstore that barely broke even some months, but filled my heart completely. My bookish corner became my sanctuary, a place where stories mattered more than appearances. "You're living beneath your potential," my mother would say during our monthly family dinners, which felt more like performance reviews. "Do you know the Henderson's daughter just made partner at her firm? And she's 2 years younger than you." Family gatherings were exercises in endurance. I still remember my 30th birthday dinner, when Jason announced Melissa's pregnancy moments after I blew out my candles. "Now we finally have something significant to celebrate," my mother had said, as if on cue. The only person who ever truly saw me was grandmother Martha. My father's mother, she was the family rebel, a woman who married for love instead of status and never quite fit my mother's vision for the Mitchell family image. In her modest home filled with books and art, I found acceptance. "They're all so busy looking at their reflections they can't see what's real," she told me once, while we baked cookies in her kitchen. "You see the world through different eyes, Abby. That's your gift, not your flaw." When Martha was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago, I was the one who drove her to appointments, organized her medications, and read to her when her eyes grew too tired. My siblings sent flowers and made brief appearances when it was convenient. My parents hired nurses, but rarely visited themselves. "They're just busy." I'd make excuses for them, but Martha would just squeeze my hand knowingly. "Some people are too busy for what matters most," she'd reply. "Don't be like them, Abby." I promised her I wouldn't, though I still desperately sought my family's approval. Even after opening my bookstore, fulfilling my lifelong dream, I would casually mention our bestseller displays or literary events, hoping for some acknowledgement. Instead, I'd get comments like, "That's nice, But have you thought about what you'll do when it fails? From my father, or at least it keeps you occupied, from my mother. After particularly brutal family gatherings, I drive home in tears, wondering what was wrong with me. Why couldn't I just be what they wanted? Why wasn't my happiness enough? Martha was the only one who celebrated my victories and comforted my defeats. When she passed away last year, I felt truly alone in my family for the first time. I didn't know then that Martha had one final way of showing me I was never alone at all. The call from Tiffany came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was unpacking a new shipment of historical fiction. My phone lit up with her name, and I felt the familiar mixture of hope and dread that accompanied any family interaction. "Hey, Abby," she said, her voice carrying that syrupy sweetness that always preceded something unpleasant. "Just calling to let you know we're planning the annual family reunion for the second weekend in July." "Oh, great," I replied, balancing the phone between my ear and shoulder as I continued shelving books. "Where are we going this year? Please don't say another wine tour. Dad got so pretentious last time." The pause that followed lasted just a beat too long. "Well, that's sort of why I'm calling," Tiffany continued. "Mom and Dad think it might be better if you sit this one out." My hand froze midair, a copy of The Great Gatsby suspended between shelf and cart. "What do you mean?" "It's just that," she sighed dramatically. "These gatherings are supposed to be celebrations, and you always seem so unhappy. Mom says you bring down the mood with your comments about your struggling bookstore and your single status. Jason thought it might be better for everyone if we just had, how did he put it, a more harmonious dynamic this year." The book slipped from my fingers, landing with a thud on the hardwood floor. "You're uninviting me from the family reunion?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Don't be so dramatic, Abby. We're just suggesting maybe you take this year to focus on yourself. Maybe work on getting your business profitable, or try that dating app one told you about." Her voice brightened artificially. "We're renting this amazing beach house in Nantucket. Super exclusive. Costs a fortune, but Dad says we deserve it after the year we've all had." "The year you've all had," I echoed. "What about the year I've had? I lost Grandma too, Tiffany. I was the one who was actually there with her." "See, this is exactly what I mean. You always make everything so heavy." Tiffany's voice took on that patronizing tone she'd perfected. "Anyway, I should go. I have a conference call with my sponsors in 5 minutes. Love you." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me standing in the middle of my bookstore, surrounded by stories of people overcoming obstacles while I couldn't even stand up to my own family. That night, I cried until my eyes were swollen. I called my best friend Haley, who came over immediately with ice cream and righteous indignation. "They did what?" she practically shouted when I explained the situation. "Your own family uninvited you from the reunion? That's beyond cruel, Abby. That's emotional abuse." "Maybe they're right," I said quietly, digging my spoon into the mint chocolate chip. "I do bring down the mood. I'm not successful like them." Haley grabbed my shoulders. "Stop it right now. You built a business from nothing. You followed your passion. You were there for your grandmother when no one else was. The problem isn't you, Abby. It's them and their twisted values." I nodded, but didn't quite believe it. Years of conditioning are hard to break. 2 days later, I was having coffee with our mutual friend Stephanie, who was cousins with Melissa, Jason's wife. Her expression was uncomfortable as she slid her phone across the table. "I thought you should see this," she said gently. "Melissa added me to the family reunion planning chat." "I'm so sorry, Abby." I scrolled through dozens of messages discussing accommodation details, meal plans, and activities, all punctuated with excited emojis and inside jokes. Messages from my parents, Jason, Tiffany, and various aunts, uncles, and cousins. Everyone except me. "The beach house rental is confirmed," my father had written. 8 bedrooms, oceanfront property, private beach access. Top of the line, everything. Melissa had replied, "It's absolutely perfect. The photos look amazing. So glad we decided to splurge this year." My mother. We deserve it. Quality family time in a quality setting. Then Tiffany. Just as this time. No negative energy to deal with. A laughing emoji from Jason followed by, peace at last. I handed the phone back to Stephanie, my hands shaking slightly. Thanks for showing me. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to show up anyway and confront them. Another part wants to just let it go. Whatever you decide, I'm on your side, Stephanie assured me. And for what it's worth, Melissa feels uncomfortable about the whole thing. She told me privately she thinks they're being too harsh. That afternoon at the bookstore, I couldn't focus. I kept misplacing books, getting inventory counts wrong, and zoning out mid-conversation with customers. After closing, I sat at my reading nook by the window, staring out at the street as dusk fell. The address of the beach house from the group chat kept floating through my mind. Something about it seemed familiar, though I couldn't place why. Nantucket wasn't a place I'd visited often. Only once, actually, with grandmother Martha when I was in college. That's when it hit me. The address. The location. It couldn't be, could it? With trembling fingers, I pulled out the folder I kept in my desk. The one with all the paperwork Mr. Jenkins had given me after grandmother Martha's will was read. I flipped through the documents until I found the property deed. 43 Seashell Lane, Nantucket, Massachusetts. The exact address my family had booked for their exclusive reunion. I stared at the paper, my mind racing. They had no idea they had rented my house. My property. The beach house Martha had left me in secret. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all. The day grandmother Martha told me about the beach house remains crystal clear in my memory. It was 3 weeks before she passed away, during one of our quiet afternoons together. The hospice nurse had just left, and Martha asked me to bring her the small wooden box she kept on her dresser. I have something to tell you, Abby, she said, her once strong voice now a whisper. Something just between us. I sat beside her, holding her fragile hand as she told me about the beach house in Nantucket, a property my grandfather had purchased decades ago as an investment. The family knew about it, of course, but what they didn't know was that Grandpa Joseph had put it solely in Martha's name before he died. Your father thinks it's going to be divided among all of you grandchildren, she explained. Your parents assume it will be sold and the money distributed. But it's mine to give, and I'm giving it to you. Martha, I can't accept that, I protested. It should be shared. Her blue eyes, still sharp despite her illness, fixed on mine. Listen to me carefully, Abigail. I've watched how they treat you. I've seen you shrink smaller every year under their judgment. This house is my statement that I see your worth even if they don't. She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. But there's a condition. Don't tell them right away. Wait until you're ready. Wait until you can stand before them as the strong woman I know you are, not seeking their approval but offering your compassion from a position of power. 2 weeks after the funeral, Mr. Jenkins, Martha's attorney for over 30 years, met me at a coffee shop across town. He slid a thick envelope across the table. Martha was very specific about her wishes, he explained, his kind eyes watching me carefully. The beach house transfer has already been processed. We've set up a management company to handle the rental aspects if you choose to continue that arrangement. Your family doesn't need to know until you're ready to tell them. I opened the envelope with shaking hands, finding the deed, keys, and detailed information about the property, a 5,000-square-foot oceanfront home valued at nearly $4 million. Photos showed a stunning white clapboard house with blue shutters, wraparound porches, and panoramic ocean views. Why would she do this? I whispered, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the gift. Martha talked about you constantly, Mr. Jenkins said gently. She believed in you completely. She worried your family's expectations were crushing your spirit. I drove to Nantucket the following weekend, using the keys to enter what was now my house for the first time as its owner. Standing in the grand entryway with its sweeping staircase and ocean views through floor-to-ceiling windows, I felt like an imposter. The house was beautiful. 8 bedrooms, each with their own bathroom, a gourmet kitchen that opened to a massive living area, multiple decks and balconies, and steps leading directly to a private beach. It was decorated in classic New England coastal style, whites and blues, weathered woods, and tasteful nautical touches. I wandered from room to room, running my fingers along bookshelves filled with classics, examining family photos Martha had placed throughout the house. In the master suite, I found a framed photo of Martha and me from my college graduation, both of us beaming at the camera, her arm around my shoulders. That night, I slept in the master bedroom, listening to the waves crash against the shore. I cried for Martha, for her absence, for her belief in me that I didn't share. Over the next several months, I worked with the management company Martha had arranged. The house had been a successful vacation rental for years, booked most summer weekends at premium rates. I decided to continue this arrangement, with the company handling all interactions with renters, so my name remained private. I used some of the rental income to renovate certain areas of the house, updating bathrooms, replacing furniture, and most importantly, creating a library in what had been a rarely used sitting room. I lined the walls with custom bookshelves and filled them with my favorite titles, adding comfortable reading chairs and good lighting. It became my favorite room in the house, the place I felt Martha's presence most strongly. The management company set up an LLC to handle all transactions, with Mr. Jenkins serving as the official contact. My name appeared nowhere in the rental listings or property records accessible to the public. It was a level of privacy Martha had arranged specifically to give me time. "When you're ready," her letter had said, "this house will be your strength, not a weapon. Use it wisely, dear one." For almost a year, I kept my ownership secret, visiting occasionally during vacant periods. I told no one except Haley, who understood the complicated emotions surrounding the inheritance. I wasn't ready to face my family's reactions, their inevitable attempts to challenge the will, their accusations of manipulation, their sudden interest in a relationship with me. I wasn't ready until they unknowingly booked my house for the reunion they'd banned me from attending. When Stephanie showed me the screenshots from the family reunion chat, I immediately recognized the property photos. The distinctive blue shutters, the unique driftwood sculpture in the foyer, the reading nook window seat I'd added during renovations. They were photos of my house, taken from the rental listing. "Is something wrong?" Stephanie asked, noticing my shocked expression. "No," I said quickly. "Nothing's wrong. I just need to verify something." That evening, I called the management company. "Yes, Ms. Mitchell, I can confirm that booking," said Claire, my account manager. "Your family requested the property from July 15th through the 22nd. The deposit has been processed and everything is arranged per your standard rental agreement." "And they have no idea who owns the property?" I asked. "None whatsoever. As always, all communications go through our company. Your name doesn't appear on any documents they would see." I thanked her and hung up, then sat in stunned silence in my apartment above the bookstore. The situation was almost too perfectly ironic to be real. My family had excluded me from their gathering, only to unknowingly choose my property as their venue. What would Martha want me to do with this opportunity? The question haunted me as I paced my small living room. The easy answer would be revenge, let them settle in, then dramatically reveal myself as the owner and evict them. The fantasy was temptingly satisfying. I imagined their shocked faces, their stammered apologies, their embarrassment. But that wasn't what Martha had wanted for me. "This house will be your strength, not a weapon," she had written. I called Haley, who came over immediately when she heard the tension in my voice. "You're not going to believe this," I told her, explaining the situation. Her eyes widened. "This is incredible. It's like the universe is handing you the perfect revenge scenario on a silver platter." "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "Part of me wants to just let them have their reunion and never tell them. Another part wants to show up and throw them all out." Haley sat across from me at my kitchen table, her expression thoughtful. "What would give you peace, Abby?" "Not temporary satisfaction, but actual peace." I considered her question carefully. "I think I need to stop being invisible to them. I need them to see me, really see me, maybe for the first time." "Then that's what you should do," she said simply. Use this opportunity not for revenge, but for revelation. The next day, I called Mr. Jenkins to discuss the legal implications. As the property owner, you have every right to be there, he confirmed. Though I would advise against any confrontational approach that could escalate to authorities being called. Family disputes can get messy quickly. I don't want a scene, I assured him. I just want to finally be honest with them and with myself. Over the next few days, a plan began to form. I wouldn't prevent them from having their reunion, but I would join it, on my terms, in my house. I would finally stand my ground, not as the family disappointment, but as a woman who had built a life true to herself. I spent hours journaling, processing years of emotions, trying to untangle what I wanted to say from the hurt that had accumulated over decades. I realized I didn't want them to feel ashamed or humiliated. I wanted them to recognize the pain their actions had caused. I wanted accountability, not revenge. I think Martha knew this day would come, I told Haley as we walked along the river near my bookstore. She gave me this house as a way to finally level the playing field with my family. Or maybe, Haley suggested, she gave you the house because she believed you deserved it, and this situation is just a bonus opportunity for growth. I nodded, considering her words. Either way, I need to do this. I need to stop hiding and hoping they'll suddenly change. I need to show up as myself, fully and without apology. As the reunion date approached, my determination grew stronger. This wasn't about getting even. It was about getting free from their expectations, from my need for their approval, from the narrative they had written about who I was. For once, I would write my own story. With 2 weeks until the reunion, I notified my assistant manager Zoe that I would be taking time off. I have some important family business to handle, I explained, the words feeling strange yet empowering. About time, she replied with a knowing smile. Take all the time you need. The store will be fine. I made an appointment with Dr. Larson, the therapist I'd been seeing sporadically since Martha's death. I needed to ensure my motivations were clear and my emotional state stable before confronting my family. What I'm hearing, she said after I explained the situation, is that you're not seeking revenge, but recognition. There's a significant difference. Exactly, I nodded. I don't want to hurt them. I just want them to see me, really see me. And if they still don't, she asked gently, what then? It was the question I'd been avoiding. Then at least I'll know I stood up for myself. That I honored Martha's belief in me. Dr. Larson smiled. That sounds like the perspective of someone who is finally finding her worth from within, not from others' validation. I left her office feeling lighter, more certain of my path. The next step was practical preparation. I wanted to look and feel my best, not to impress my family, but to armor myself with confidence. I spent an afternoon shopping with Haley, searching for the perfect outfit. You need something that says, I own this place, literally and figuratively, Haley joked as we browsed through boutiques. We eventually found it, a simple but elegant blue sundress that matched the color of the ocean visible from the house's windows. I paired it with my grandmother's pearl earrings, the only jewelry she had specifically left to me in her will. Perfect, Haley declared when I tried on the complete outfit. You look powerful, but not like you're trying too hard. I coordinated with Claire at the management company to arrange specific details for the reunion weekend. The house would be stocked with groceries and essentials as usual, but I requested some personal touches, fresh flowers and arrangements Martha had always loved, her favorite cookies from the local bakery, and selected photos of her placed meaningfully throughout the house. I'll be arriving the day before the guests, I informed Claire. I'd like to prepare the house personally. Of course, Ms. Mitchell. It's your property. Her words sent a small thrill through me. My property.
Meaning?
In the days leading up to the reunion, I practiced what I wanted to say. Standing before my bathroom mirror, I rehearsed my entrance, my responses to their inevitable shock, the boundaries I would establish. I'm Abigail Mitchell, I said to my reflection. I am the owner of this house. I am worthy of respect. Each repetition made the words feel more true. I packed carefully. Enough clothes for a week, important documents proving my ownership, and several meaningful items that represented my authentic self. Books I'd loved, a photo album of my bookstore's growth, Martha's handwritten recipes. The night before I was set to leave, Haley came over for moral support. "Are you nervous?" she asked as we shared takeout Chinese food in my living room. "Terrified," I admitted. "But also ready? Does that make sense?" She nodded. "It makes perfect sense. You've been preparing for this moment longer than you realize." That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with scenarios, imagining their reactions, rehearsing my responses. By dawn, I was exhausted but resolute. I loaded my car, took one last look at my apartment, and began the drive to Nantucket. The ferry crossing was calm, the July morning bright and clear. As the island came into view, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. Whatever happened in the next few days, I was finally taking control of my narrative. I arrived at the beach house by noon, using my key to enter what truly was my home. The management company had prepared everything perfectly. The house was immaculate. Vases of fresh hydrangeas and lilies adorned various surfaces, and Martha's favorite cookies were arranged on a platter in the kitchen. I walked through each room slowly, touching furniture, adjusting photos, claiming the space as mine. In the library, I ran my fingers along the spines of books I'd carefully selected. In the master bedroom, I unpacked my clothes into drawers and closets that rightfully belonged to me. On the bedside table, I placed the photo of Martha and me from my graduation, positioning it so it would be the first thing I saw each morning. "I'm doing this, Grandma," I whispered to her smiling image. "I'm finally standing up for myself." As evening approached, I sat on the back deck watching the sunset over the ocean, mentally preparing for tomorrow's confrontation. My family would arrive around noon, expecting a luxury rental and a week of self-congratulatory bonding without the family disappointment to bring down the mood. Instead, they would find me, not as the person they had dismissed, but as the woman Martha had always seen, strong, worthy, and finally ready to claim her place. I woke early the next morning, the gentle sound of waves replacing my usual alarm. After a quiet breakfast on the deck and a walk along the private beach, I prepared for my family's arrival. I chose a strategic observation point, the window seat in the upstairs hallway that overlooked the circular driveway. From there, I could watch unseen as they arrived. At precisely 12:15 p.m., the first car pulled into the driveway, my parents' sleek black Mercedes. My father emerged first, surveying the property with appreciative eyes, while my mother adjusted her designer sunglasses and smoothed her linen pants. Even from a distance, I could see their impressed expressions as they took in the grand facade of the house. "Gregory, it's even more beautiful than the photos," my mother's voice carried up to my window. "Tiffany found an absolute gem." My father nodded, already checking his phone. "At these rates, it better be perfect." They wheeled their expensive luggage to the front door, using the entry code the management company had provided. I heard their footsteps and exclamations as they entered the foyer below. "Look at this place." My mother's voice echoed through the house. The moldings alone must have cost a fortune. 10 minutes later, Jason and Melissa arrived with their 3-year-old son Parker. Jason parked his Range Rover beside our parents' car and immediately began taking photos of the house. "This will look great on the firm's Instagram," he said to Melissa. "Partner retreats in style." Melissa seemed more concerned with corralling Parker, who was already running toward the beach. "It's gorgeous," she agreed distractedly. "Parker, wait for Mommy." The last to arrive was Tiffany, pulling up in her white convertible, oversized sunglasses perched on her head. Before even retrieving her luggage, she positioned herself in front of the house for a selfie, pouting artfully at her phone. "Hello, content for the next week," she sang to herself. "The followers are going to eat this up." Within an hour, they had all entered the house and begun exploring. I moved silently from my window seat to the top of the stairs, listening to their conversations below. "I call the master suite," my father announced, as if it were his right. "There's a bedroom on the 3rd floor with its own balcony," Jason called out. "Melissa, and I will take that one." "Is there good lighting in the east bedrooms?" Tiffany asked no one in particular. I need natural light for my morning skincare routine videos. They continued claiming spaces, exploring rooms, and making comments about the furnishings, sometimes appreciative, sometimes critical, always entitled. Not once did anyone mention my absence or express that they missed my presence. Who put all these books in this room? My mother's voice drifted up from the library. It's a bit much, isn't it? This could have been another entertainment space. Some of these titles are actually valuable first editions, my father responded, his voice carrying the tone he used when assessing assets. Smart investment by the owner. Speaking of smart, Jason chimed in. Have you seen the rental agreement? This place goes for $30,000 a week during peak season. Dad, we should look into investment properties like this. The ROI must be incredible. I watched from various hidden vantage points as they settled in. My parents arranging their toiletries in the master bathroom, Melissa setting up Parker's portable crib in their chosen room, Tiffany reorganizing furniture to create better backgrounds for her social media posts. Should we do a seafood boil tonight? My mother suggested as they all congregated in the kitchen. I saw some gorgeous lobster at the market on our way in. Perfect for my content calendar, Tiffany agreed, already planning camera angles. Luxury family dinner with ocean sunset? Yes, please. I'll handle the wine pairing, my father offered. The rental description mentioned a premium wine fridge in the butler's pantry. As they discussed dinner plans, I slipped into the master bedroom, my bedroom, and retrieved the photo of Martha and me, placing it prominently on the console table in the main living area. A small declaration of presence they had yet to notice. By late afternoon, they had fully claimed the space. My father and Jason were drinking scotch on the back deck, discussing investment strategies. My mother and Melissa were preparing dinner in the kitchen, while Tiffany arranged a charcuterie board, stopping frequently to take photos for her Instagram. This is exactly what we needed, I heard my mother say to Melissa. Just quality time with the successful branches of the family. Do you think Abby's upset about not being invited? Melissa asked, her voice lower. My mother sighed. Abigail always finds something to be upset about. This week is about celebrating achievement, not managing her feelings about her life choices. Still, Melissa persisted, she is family. Sometimes family means knowing when to create distance, my mother replied dismissively. Now, pass me that serving platter, the Wedgwood one. It'll look better for Tiffany's photos. Their words stung, but not as deeply as they once would have. I felt oddly detached, like an anthropologist observing a strange culture rather than a daughter hearing her mother's dismissal. As evening approached, they gathered on the deck for dinner. Through the glass doors, I watched them toast to family success and another exceptional year for the Mitchells. They looked perfect in the golden sunset light. Beautiful people in beautiful clothes in a beautiful setting, creating a beautiful illusion. I took a deep breath and realized it was time. Time to step into the light, into my truth, into my power. I opened the deck door and stepped outside. The conversation at the table stopped abruptly as I appeared. 5 pairs of eyes turned to me, expressions morphing from confusion to shock. Abby. My mother recovered first, her voice pitched higher than normal. What are you doing here? How did you get in? I smiled, feeling strangely calm despite my racing heart. Hello, everyone. Lovely evening for a family dinner, isn't it? My father stood up, his lawyer face firmly in place. Abigail, this is inappropriate. If Tiffany explained the situation to you, you know this is a private family gathering. I'm well aware of what was explained to me, Dad. I moved to the empty chair at the head of the table. Martha's chair, now mine. But there seems to be some confusion about whose gathering this actually is. Jason's face darkened. What are you talking about? And seriously, how did you get in here? Did you follow us? This is technically breaking and entering. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my keys, placing them deliberately on the table. It's not breaking and entering when you have keys to your own property, Jason. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the waves seemed to pause. What exactly are you saying? My mother finally asked, her voice dangerously controlled. I'm saying, I replied, meeting her gaze steadily, that you're currently enjoying dinner at my house. I own this property. Grandmother Martha left it to me in her will last year. Disbelief, then calculation, crossed their faces in rapid succession. That's impossible, my father declared. Mother's estate was settled. The beach house was to be sold and the proceeds divided among all the grandchildren. That was the assumption. I agreed. But not the reality. Martha left this house specifically to me, with explicit instructions that I wasn't to tell anyone until I was ready. I reached for the folder I'd placed nearby earlier, sliding out the property deed and placing it on the table. You're welcome to examine the documentation. Mr. Jenkins handled everything legally and thoroughly. Jason snatched up the papers, his attorney eyes scanning rapidly. This has to be a mistake. Or a forgery. Why would Grandma leave her most valuable asset just to you? Because she wanted to, I said simply. Because she saw how this family treated me. Because she wanted me to have something that was just mine. This is ridiculous, Tiffany interjected, her perfect features contorted with indignation. You must have manipulated her when she was sick. That's the only explanation. Is it, Tiffany? I asked quietly. Is it so hard to believe that someone in this family valued me exactly as I am? We've always supported you, Abigail, my mother said with practiced sincerity. We've only ever wanted what's best for you. No, I contradicted her gently. You've wanted what you think is best for your family image. There's a difference. My father, ever the pragmatist, was already shifting strategies. Well, this is unexpected. But in a way, it's wonderful news. Our Abby, a property owner. I always knew you had it in you to step up. Did you? I asked, genuinely curious. Because from where I've been sitting for the past 34 years, you've made it very clear that you thought I was a disappointment. That's not fair, he protested, but his eyes slid away from mine. Actually, I think it's perfectly fair, I countered. Just like it was fair to exclude me from this reunion because I bring down the mood with my ordinary life. Melissa, who had remained silent until now, looked genuinely uncomfortable. I told them it wasn't right to exclude you, she said quietly. For what it's worth. Thank you, Melissa, I acknowledged. I appreciate that. So what now? Jason demanded, tossing the deed back onto the table. You show up to gloat and throw us out? Is that the grand plan? Revenge for not being invited? No, Jason. That's what you might do, but it's not what I'm doing. I took a deep breath. I'm not asking you to leave. This reunion can continue exactly as planned. I'm simply joining it, in my house on my terms. My mother's perfectly maintained composure began to crack. You can't be serious. After everything, you expect us to just… What? Pretend this ambush didn't happen? I don't expect you to pretend anything, I replied. I expect you to acknowledge the truth about this house, about how you've treated me, about the family dynamics we've all been playing out for decades. No more pretending. That's all I'm asking. Tiffany, ever the opportunist, suddenly brightened. This is actually amazing. My followers would love this story. Reunited with my sister in her secret beach house inheritance. We could do a whole series of reconciliation content. No, Tiffany, I said firmly. This isn't content. This is my life. And I'm not interested in being a prop in your curated reality. Her face fell. I was just trying to find the positive angle. The positive angle, I explained, would be genuinely reconnecting as a family, without cameras, without performance, without status calculations. My father, ever the negotiator, leaned forward. Let's all take a breath. Clearly, there have been misunderstandings. But we're family and families work through these things. Abby, you have every right to be upset about the reunion situation. Perhaps we were hasty in our decision. This isn't just about the reunion, Dad. This is about a lifetime of conditional love and impossible standards. This is about being treated as less than because I chose a different path than the one you mapped out. We've always loved you, my mother interjected, her voice wavering between defensiveness and hurt. I believe you have, I conceded. But you haven't respected me. There's a difference. The conversation continued into the night, sometimes heated, sometimes tearful, occasionally even productive. Old wounds were exposed, painful truths acknowledged. Jason remained largely defensive. Tiffany fluctuated between opportunism and genuine moments of connection, and my parents oscillated between denial and glimpses of real understanding. Around midnight, as the emotional exhaustion began to take its toll, I stood up from the table. It's late, and this is a lot to process for everyone. You all know your room assignments, though I should mention that the master suite is actually mine. I smiled slightly at my parents' expressions. But you're welcome to use it this week. I'll take one of the guest rooms. As I turned to leave, my father called after me. Abby, wait. I need to ask. Why did you let us come here? Why not just cancel the reservation when you saw it was us? I considered his question carefully. Because Martha didn't give me this house as a weapon. She gave it to me as a foundation, a place to stand firmly and speak my truth. That's what I'm doing. As I climbed the stairs to my chosen bedroom, I heard them continue talking below, their voices more subdued, more thoughtful than I could remember hearing in years. Whatever happened next, something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in my life, I was visible to my family. Truly visible. And that visibility had come not from contorting myself to fit their expectations, but from standing firmly in my own truth. Martha would have been proud. The next morning, I woke early and headed to the kitchen to make coffee. To my surprise, my father was already there, staring out at the ocean with a pensive expression. "Morning," I said, startling him from his thoughts. "Abby." He nodded, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. I couldn't sleep much. That makes two of us. We stood in awkward silence as the coffee brewed. Finally, he spoke. "Your grandmother was an extraordinary woman," he said quietly. "She always saw things the rest of us missed." I nodded, unsure where he was going with this. "I didn't appreciate that enough when she was alive," he continued. "I was too focused on what I thought success should look like." He turned to face me directly. "I think I've made the same mistake with you." The vulnerability in his expression caught me off guard. My father, Gregory Mitchell, who measured life in acquisitions and achievements, was showing genuine regret. "It's not too late to see things differently," I offered cautiously. He nodded, then reached into his pocket. "I found this in the master bathroom last night. I'm guessing you put it there." He handed me a small envelope with my name written in Martha's distinctive handwriting. "I didn't," I said, confused. "I had no idea this was here." The envelope contained a short letter from Martha, dated just weeks before her death. "Dear Abby, if you're reading this, you've finally claimed your place in the house and in your life. There are similar letters for each family member hidden throughout this house, places only they would look. My final attempt at bringing healing to this family I've loved so imperfectly. Gregory will find his in his favorite fishing spot. Pamela's is with her reflection. Jason's is where ambition sleeps, and Tiffany's where appearances matter most. Let them find their letters in their own time. Your job isn't to fix this family, it's to be authentically yourself within it. With eternal love and faith in you. Martha. I looked up at my father, tears blurring my vision. She left letters for everyone. She did, he confirmed, his voice rough with emotion. Mine was in the tackle box in the boathouse. I found it last night when I went walking to clear my head. What did it say? I asked, then quickly added, "If you want to share." He was quiet for a moment. It said that success without connection is an empty achievement. That she was proud of what I'd built, but worried about what I'd sacrificed to build it. His eyes met mine. She told me to really see you, not for who I wanted you to be, but for who you actually are. By mid-morning, everyone had gathered in the living room. The atmosphere was markedly different from the previous evening, subdued, thoughtful, tentative. My mother had found her letter in a jewelry box in the master bathroom. Jason discovered his tucked into the desk in the study. Tiffany's was hidden in the antique vanity in her room. Martha always was several steps ahead of everyone else, my mother said, her carefully applied makeup not quite hiding the evidence of tears. Even from beyond, she's orchestrating family interventions. I'd like to share something with you all, I said, taking a deep breath. Something I've never told you because I didn't think you'd understand or care. I described my bookstore, not as the struggling business they assumed it was, but as the thriving community hub it had become. I shared stories of the reading programs we developed for underprivileged children, the author events that drew crowds from neighboring towns, the book club that had helped elderly residents combat loneliness. I'm not rich by your standards, I concluded. But I've built something meaningful, something that matters to me and to my community. That's my success story. The conversation that followed was unlike any we'd ever had as a family. For perhaps the first time, we spoke honestly about expectations and disappointments, about miscommunications and assumptions, about the gap between who we presented ourselves to be and who we actually were. Jason admitted the pressure he felt to maintain his perfect life image. Some days I envy your freedom, Abby. My life looks impressive from the outside, but most days it's just exhausting. Tiffany revealed that her social media empire was deeply in debt. I'm one algorithm change away from financial disaster, but I can't let anyone see that. The brand has to look perfect even when I'm falling apart. My mother spoke of her own mother's criticism, the generational pattern of impossible standards. I thought I was helping you by pushing you. I didn't realize I was repeating the very patterns that hurt me. Not everything was resolved in that conversation, or even during that week. Jason still made occasionally dismissive comments about my simple life. Tiffany couldn't resist turning some moments into content for her followers. My parents slipped into old patterns of judgment when their guard was down. But something fundamental had changed. We were finally seeing each other. Imperfectly, incompletely, but genuinely. On the last evening of the reunion, we gathered on the beach for a bonfire. As the flames illuminated our circle, I noticed how different we looked from the perfect family portrait my mother had always tried to create. Parker was covered in sand and sticky marshmallow. Jason had abandoned his designer clothes for worn jeans and a sweatshirt. Tiffany's phone remained untouched in her pocket. My parents sat close together, holding hands like they hadn't done in years. I've been thinking, my father said as we watched the waves in comfortable silence. This house is too special to be just a rental property most of the year. I tensed, waiting for him to suggest I sell it or turn it over to the family. It should be a family home, he continued. A place where we can all gather, together, throughout the year. If you're amenable, Abby, I'd like to discuss helping you maintain it for that purpose. I'd like that, I said, surprised by how much I meant it. 1 year later, we held another reunion at the beach house. This time, the invitation explicitly included everyone. The dynamics weren't perfect. We were still the Mitchells, after all, with our complicated history and ingrained patterns. But we were trying, and that effort itself was a kind of love I'd never fully experienced from my family before. The house that Martha left me had indeed become my foundation, not just financially, but emotionally. It gave me the security to stand firm in who I was, to offer connection without requiring approval, to love my family without being diminished by them. On the last night of that second reunion, I stood alone on the deck after everyone had gone to bed. Looking out at the moonlight reflecting on the waves, I felt Martha's presence beside me. Thank you, I whispered to the night air, not just for the house, but for seeing who I could become when I finally stood in my own truth. The ocean breeze seemed to wrap around me like an embrace, carrying the whispered response I needed to hear. I always saw you, Abby. I'm just glad you finally see yourself. What would you do if you were in Abby's situation? Would you have revealed yourself immediately, or waited like she did? Have you ever had to stand up to family who didn't see your true worth? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing in their truth is always worth it. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't what we're given but what we discover within ourselves.